Kundalini is the life force. The word has its roots in yoga practice. You could also refer to it as chi, prana, or shakti. All of these words describe a life energy. However, the word Kundalini also describes an event, a physiological event, a rising of energy. Or maybe another way to describe this is as a liberation of energy. In other words, the removal of blocks that allow the vital energy, the life force energy, to flow. Those blocks are fundamentally caused by the ego or identity and its habit patterns, which create a sort of default mode of chronic stress. This Kundalini event is caused oftentimes by engaging in mind-body practice. So practices like yoga, meditation, sound therapy, and so forth. These practices fundamentally move the nervous system towards relaxation. As the system relaxes, the possibility exists for Kundalini to arise. This is also the symbolism of the lotus in the yoga practice. Kundalini is also described as a coiled snake. This symbolism also exists in the common medical symbol of the caduceus. Two snakes entwined around a staff. So why the snake? Well, because as the energy of stress unravels, it feels as if it moves up the spine. Keep in mind, the spine is the central channel of the nervous system. So as tensions and blocks release in the body, the energetic signals are referred back to this central channel. This can be felt as if there's a sort of moving energy up the spine. The symbol of the snake was also frequently used in ancient times to describe energy because of its flowing movement. In the West, the collective psyche associates the animal of the snake with evil. Be assured that this energy is anything but that. This is the rising of energy that dissolves the tensions and delusions of the ego and ultimately brings one to the union with the true self. That is to say, God. This energetic process is the process of being born again. Old things are passed away, and all things are become new. This energy of the life force is the spirit of wholeness that heals the fractured self. The identity or ego is always unconsciously trying to control the physiology in order to control the way it is perceived in quote-unquote the world. Unconscious habit patterns become imprints of the mind and body. They are neurological habit patterns, and these habit patterns also affect the physiology. This is the state of the fractured self, a self that is in service to some imagined ideal of the self, which accepts some parts of the self and rejects others. It is constantly in a state of disharmony, at war with itself. In fact, the false identity is trying to control life itself. It's easy to see this illustrated explicitly in war. Ultimately, the Kundalini energy rises up the spine into the third eye. The third eye initiates the clarity that sees through the charade of this fractured and false self. As the third eye opens, it releases a variety of chemicals that are the endogenous versions of many of today's popular psychedelics. There is anandamide, which is the human-made version of THC. There is DMT, which is a psychedelic found in ayahuasca and possibly others. Once the third eye center opens in this psychedelic experience, the perspective begins to shift away from the ego perspective. This is the awakening of the higher self. Because the mind is cleared and reset, it literally feels as if one is being born again. The difficulty is that there must be a full surrender, allowing the false self to pass away. All of one's beliefs and perspectives are inventoried and examined. Most are discarded or updated. The teaching of Christ comes to mind when he said, "Whoever will give his life for my sake will surely save it." The word "my" in that sentence describes the I am that I am, the true self, free from identification with that which is changing. Some level of psychosis often accompanies the process, as the external locus of the identity is also re-examined and found to be a false construct. The nature of this self and the transformation process is referenced in nearly every religion, from the Abrahamic faiths to the traditions of the East. This initiation occurred in my experience around 12 years ago. I was not aware of what this was, and I was not seeking it. It has taken the last decade for me to process and integrate this to some degree. I do feel that this is at the heart of the idea of mental health and of encouraging the psyche towards pro-social behaviors and not antisocial behaviors. I believe it's also at the heart of the teaching of Christ and the teachings of yoga and many other teachings and religions. For the individual, it is the introduction to bliss that can only be found in alignment with love. The nervous system can only find true peace in this alignment. It is intrinsically and inherently the nature of our nervous system to gravitate to this place. As a society, this energy is the fulfillment of law, the move to true unity that can only come from self-governance and surrender to the life force itself and its inherent respect for all of life. After all, the law itself only exists to encourage pro-social behavior and discourage antisocial behaviors in order to create a sense of harmony and safety in society that encourages and supports life. This awakening experience itself can be quite jarring in its psychedelic nature. It was the hardest thing I've ever experienced, and to be honest, from moment to moment during the experience, I wasn't sure that I would make it through it. It peels the psyche and nervous system down to its very core. Is this an experience? Well, yes and no. It is an experience that is the beginning of a process and a potential, a process of transformation by the renewing of the mind, a new way of being, or perhaps more accurately, a remembering. My desire is to help anyone who wants to move towards this experience, and also to offer a bit of perspective from my own. I also want to begin to explore the holistic nature that may lead to this tipping point in the energetic system. Most of today's practices, like yoga, meditation, mind-body wellness practices, can be part of the overall puzzle, but I feel a holistic understanding in the context of physical and mental processes is also important. It's clear from the observation of the world at large that dysfunction and disharmony are the status quo. So while this may seem to be mystical, it is in fact basic and universal. It's a conversation that is at the center of mental health, the center of justice, and I believe at the trajectory of humanity as a collective species.